Montgomery, and today I'd like to show you how I built this really simple platform style bed with storage underneath and a really simple upholstered headboard on Modern Builds. To start, I got my plywood broken down at Home Depot to make everything more manageable. Then I could cut my 4 horizontal slats to size. After I found the center of each of those slats, I went ahead and used another piece of 3/4 inch plywood to make an outline that I would use to cut out for my half lap joint. I used a circular saw to cut my straight lines, then I cleaned everything up with the jigsaw. Then, out of a second sheet of plywood, I could cut my center support to length. The measurements for all the rest of the half lap cuts will be in the written article, so make sure and check that out if you're planning on building this. But I did make a 1/2 inch half lap at the footboard of the bed and a 3/4 inch half lap towards the headboard end of the bed. And you can see how everything goes together really easy here. So here's the really basic frame, at least the plywood portion of it, but you can tell where each of the drawers are gonna go. And as you can tell, I haven't cut a footboard piece yet, and that's because I wanna make a solid wood panel out of 1x4s. And I'm gonna do that for the drawer faces as well as portions of the headboard. And for these panel glue-ups, I'm kinda just doing them the quick and easy way. I'm not drilling in dowels or using biscuits. The wood glue should be plenty fine for these panels. They're not gonna be supporting a ton of weight anyways. Plus, this just makes it go by a lot quicker. So once the glue dried for my footboard panel, I could go ahead and run it through the planer to make sure everything was really flat and even, and clean everything up with the belt sander, and finally, sand everything all the way up to 220 grit. And instead of another half lap joint for the footboard, I used a 3/4 inch dado bit in my router to make this groove. That way the center support doesn't show through the footboard. And once I put it all together, I realized I wanted to put in some 2x4 supports. So I transferred my marks from my center support onto each of the 2x4s, cut them to length, and then I cut out a slot in each of the horizontal supports that the 2x4s would sit in. Then I could add some pocket holes and screw them all in. And for a little extra support, I added some angle brackets on the headboard and footboard sides. Okay, a couple things that I did really quick off camera that helped me out was I screwed a 2x4 to my first piece of plywood. Since it had that bow, screwing that piece of plywood got it straight. That way everything else I was referencing was straight. I used some 1x4 trim to cap off the headboard and footboard. And I just attached everything with some pocket hole screws. Then, on each of the sides, I decided to use 1x8s for a couple reasons. One, it was just a little bit stronger, but mainly it made it to where the hole in the center was small enough that all I needed was one sheet of plywood to cover it all up. If you live somewhere that's got a really high humidity level, you'll want to use slats instead of a solid plywood platform, so make sure and Google it before you do that step. Next, I used a belt sander to make everything really flush and smooth, and sanded everything to 220 grit. Now I just wanted to knock these drawers out really quick, so I just glued and brad nailed them together and slapped a 1/2 inch MDF bottom on them. And I decided to just screw on some casters instead of drawer slides. That way I wouldn't have to depend on the frame being perfectly square for the drawers to slide right. And for the drawer faces, I did the same type of panel glue up that I did for my footboard, except I used 8-foot 1x4s this time. While we're on the... Hang on. That's better. Now that we're on the subject of sanding and making dust, I think it's a great time to talk about today's sponsor, RZ Mask. So this is the RZ Mask. It's a super lightweight, really comfortable dust mask that I've been trying out now for the past few weeks. And unlike a traditional respirator that attaches at the crown of your head, the RZ Mask has a really quick one-step Velcro fastener that attaches around the back of the neck. And this is really awesome for me because I'm able to take off either my dust mask or my hearing protection without having to take them both off or worry about getting them all tangled up with each other. And just because the RZ Mask is super compact and lightweight doesn't mean it lacks in filtration. In fact, this thing filters all the way down to 0.1 micron, which is really great. Now I'm gonna leave a link in the description to RZ Mask's website along with their Instagram account. Now if you choose to purchase an RZ Mask using my code, not only will you get free shipping, but you'll also receive 10% off and a free pack of F3 filters, which are made using HEPA-rated materials and active carbon, which means it filters out all of those chemicals from wood stains and finishes. And finally, I just want to give a really big thanks to RZ Mask for sponsoring this video along with a lot of other great woodworking content online. Supporting my sponsors is a great way to help to support me directly, so thanks in advance. So with my drawer face panel all sanded to 220 grit, I used an 1/8 inch spacer below it and then clamped it to the face of my bed frame. Then I could use a pencil and mark where each of my horizontal slats were. That way I could come back with my circular saw and cut each drawer face to fit. Now I saw this trick from Jimmy DiResta a little while back in one of his videos where all you do for your drawer faces is apply some hot glue and tack your drawer face to the drawer. Then once it's dry, you can follow it up with a couple screws to make sure it's all lined up. It's a pretty quick and easy way to do it. Then I could come back with a few coats of a dark walnut Danish oil to stain and finish everything. So this was my first attempt at an upholstered headboard, so I'm probably not the best resource in the world for this, but it still came out good. All I did was I cut my 3/4 inch piece of plywood to size and used some 1.5 inch plywood bracing around it. Then I used a round over bit in my router to make sure all of my edges were really smooth and rounded over, and installed my French cleat. Now I'll leave a link to a video on French cleats if you don't know what they are. Then once that was done, I just cut my batting to size, applied some spray adhesive, and folded over all of the corners. For this project, I chose to use a vinyl fake leather instead of actual leather, and once again, that was for a couple reasons. One, I went to Tandy Leather to get real leather, but they didn't have a really stark, like bleach white finished leather. Everything was an off-white, and I wanted a pure white finish. Secondly, if you're doing this project, the leather itself would probably cost you about $200, but this fake leather only cost me $13 at Hobby Lobby. Alright, fingers crossed. Let's see how it came out. Oh dang! It worked! That's awesome. So here I'm tracing the ends of the headboard on a piece of 1x4 and cutting that shape out on the bandsaw. You could use a jigsaw too. Then I smoothed everything out on the disc sander, rounded over the edges, and put some stain on it. Then I could just tack it in place with a few brad nails and follow it up with a couple screws. Hanging the headboard was pretty straightforward. All I'm doing here is searching for the studs and marking the location where I need to drill for my French cleat. Make sure you use a level so that you know your cleat is straight so that your headboard will hang straight. But once it's on, all you'll have to do is hang the headboard on the cleat and it'll be really, really sturdy. And once I got everything else set up and the drawers in, the bed was done. Now I am so excited with how this came out. This is my 4th bed or headboard project I've done, and I'm excited to finally get one for myself. So this is really exciting. Not to mention the whole casters on the drawers thing was a killer idea in my book. So that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed the project. Like I said, doing upholstery for the first time really was not as hard as I thought, and it really came out nice. Working with the vinyl or the fake leather really kind of gave me the confidence to go into real leather, which I've got a project for in a couple weeks because this really wasn't too tough. Also, I want to give one more big thanks to RZ Mask for sponsoring this video, and like I said, I'm going to be giving some away. So all you got to do for that is go to my Instagram account, find this picture, click like, and make sure you're following both me and RZ Mask. And I'll be announcing the winner next Saturday on my Instagram, so check out for that. If you plan on building this project for yourself, make sure and check out the written article linked in the description. I'm going to have a cut list, supplies list, and all kinds of extra information that I wasn't able to cram into this video. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like button. It lets me know what kind of projects you guys are into and what you might be interested in seeing next. Also, if this is your first onto my channel, I'd like to say welcome, as well as please subscribe. That way you can stay updated every time I post a new video. All you gotta do is hit that button right there, whether you're on desktop or mobile. And finally, if you want to see any of my other bed or headboard projects, they'll pop up all over the screen, one here, and probably one right here. So thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time on Modern Build.